The California sun hung low in the sky as the red Ferrari glided down the highway, its sleek frame catching the golden hues of the fading daylight. Keanu Reeves kept one hand on the wheel, his face calm, effortlessly maneuvering the car along the coastal road. Sandra Bullock sat beside him, sunglasses perched on her nose, her expression relaxed as she gazed out at the ocean stretching endlessly beside them. A soft chuckle escaped her lips. "I'm getting major déjà vu right now." Keanu smirked, eyes still on the road. "If you're talking about speed, at least this time, we don't have a bus about to explode." Sandra raised an eyebrow. "And this time, you're the one driving. Which makes me wonder, have you actually gotten any better?" Keanu feigned offense. "Are you saying I don't know how to drive?" Sandra folded her arms, grinning. "I just remember that in Speed, my character had to take the wheel because you were too busy dealing with a terrorist." Keanu laughed. "At least now we're heading to a charity gala. No bad guys in sight." Sandra shook her head. "Never say that too soon." Just then, a soft beep echoed through the Ferrari's dashboard. Keanu frowned as a message flashed on the screen, low fuel level. Sandra glanced at the gauge and let out a laugh. "Don't tell me you forgot to refuel." Keanu sighed. "Let's just say I was too busy enjoying the moment." Sandra pointed ahead. "Lucky for you, there's a gas station right there." Keanu spotted the only station in sight, a rundown roadside stop with a flickering neon sign, its convenience store small and outdated. The place looked deserted. He slowed down, pulling into the station as the Ferrari's engine purred softly before shutting off. Sandra stretched her arms and took off her sunglasses. "Since we're stopping, I'm going to grab a coffee." Keanu nodded. "I'll fill up the car. See you inside." Sandra stepped out, walking toward the convenience store. The soft click of fuel flowing into the tank filled the air as Keanu started refueling. That's when he noticed them. Leaning against two parked motorcycles near the store entrance, two men sat watching. Both wore worn-out leather jackets, chains wrapped around their wrists, and dark sunglasses that reflected the setting sun. Their presence was casual, but their eyes were sharp. Keanu had been in enough situations to recognize when someone was studying their surroundings, not just looking, but calculating. Then Sandra walked past them. The bigger of the two, a huge man with a thick beard and tattooed arms, let out a low whistle. The other, a leaner guy with a crooked grin and a gold tooth, leaned forward. "Well, well, look at this." The bearded man smirked, his eyes locked onto Sandra as she disappeared into the store, completely unaware of them. The one with the gold tooth chuckled. "Hollywood, huh? Don't see that every day." The bigger man cracked his knuckles, his smirk widening. "Maybe we should go introduce ourselves." The two men exchanged glances before pushing off their bikes, stepping toward the store. Keanu didn't move. He simply watched. Because sometimes, the best way to understand a situation is to wait and observe. And that's exactly what he was going to do. Inside the convenience store, the soft chime of the doorbell echoed as Sandra stepped in. The place had an old, forgotten feel. Dusty shelves lined with snacks, a flickering fluorescent light humming overhead. In the back corner, an outdated television played a baseball game on mute, while a radio murmured a slow country song. Sandra made her way to the coffee station, grabbing a disposable cup. She tore open a sugar packet, her movements casual, unaware of the two shadows slipping in behind her. The first biker, the bearded giant, leaned against the counter just a few feet away, his presence looming but seemingly casual. His friend, the one with the gold tooth, positioned himself near the door, his eyes scanning Sandra up and down, his grin widening. Sandra caught their reflection in the glass of the coffee machine. She didn't react. Years in Hollywood had made her used to attention, sometimes good, sometimes not. The bearded man spoke first. "Well, well, look who we have here. Hollywood in person." Sandra turned slowly, keeping her expression polite. "Guess I've been spotted." The lean biker let out a low chuckle. "And what brings a woman like you to a place like this?" Sandra casually placed the lid on her coffee. "Just grabbing a drink while my friend fills up outside." The big guy's smirk widened. "Left you all alone in here? That doesn't seem very safe." Sandra let out a small laugh, keeping her tone light but firm. I think I'll be just fine. She shifted slightly, ready to walk past them, but the lean biker stepped sideways, subtly blocking her path. Whoa, already leaving? His grin sharpened. We just started talking. Sandra's fingers tightened around her cup. Now she knew. This wasn't just recognition, it was something else. Outside, Keanu had finished fueling the car, but his eyes hadn't left the glass storefront. He saw how the two bikers had positioned themselves. He saw Sandra's subtle posture shift, and he knew exactly what was happening. Inside, Sandra took another step, trying to angle herself toward the door, but the skinny biker mirrored her movement. The bearded man chuckled. Bet you're used to dealing with rude guys in Hollywood, huh? But we're real gentlemen around here. Sandra kept her voice calm but firm. If you're gentlemen, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind letting me through. The lean biker grinned even wider. Of course, but before you go, how about a little toast? He tapped his fingers on the counter. Maybe we could take you somewhere more fun. Sandra's stomach turned. Now she knew. This wasn't just casual pestering. This was a test. Outside, Keanu's jaw tightened. He saw Sandra take a small step back. He saw the gold-toothed biker gesture with his hands as he spoke. He had seen this exact kind of behavior before. Keanu took a slow breath. He wasn't moving yet. Not yet. Because he wanted to see exactly how far these two were willing to take it. Inside, Sandra's patience had run out. She shifted her stance, setting down her coffee. Look, guys, she said evenly, I don't want any trouble. The lean biker reached out and grabbed her arm, and at that exact moment, Keanu Reeves stepped away from the car. His movements were calm, measured, controlled, and as he walked toward the store, everything was about to change. The convenience store door creaked open, and the metallic bell above it jingled softly. But this time, the sound wasn't just background noise, it carried weight. Keanu Reeves stepped inside. The old wooden floor let out a faint creak beneath his measured steps. He didn't rush. He didn't speak. He just existed. And suddenly the entire atmosphere in the store shifted. Sandra felt it immediately. The moment he entered, the moment his presence altered the air itself. But the bikers felt it too. The bearded man, still leaning against the counter, stiffened slightly. The lean biker, still gripping Sandra's arm, froze for just a second too long. That second was enough. Keanu's gaze flicked to Sandra first, a silent question. Are you okay? Sandra understood immediately. She gave the smallest nod, her expression calm but alert. Keanu's eyes shifted to the bikers, cold, steady, unshaken. The skinny biker's grip on Sandra's arm loosened, but he didn't let go just yet. Instead, he forced a grin, trying to reclaim the power he felt slipping through his fingers. And you didn't even introduce us to your friend, he muttered, voice still dripping with arrogance. Keanu tilted his head slightly. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the store like a knife. You're going to apologize to her. The words weren't a suggestion. The bearded biker let out a short, forced chuckle, glancing at his friend. Listen, man, we didn't do anything. We were just messing around. Keanu's gaze didn't waver. He didn't blink. Apologize. The store clerk behind the counter, a skinny kid in a backward cap, stopped pretending to stock shelves. His eyes darted between Keanu and the bikers. His breath held, as if sensing he was about to witness something unforgettable. The lean biker squinted slightly. I think you're taking this a little too seriously, man. Relax. Keanu took a slow step forward. Not aggressive, not rushed, but controlled. And the bikers reacted instinctively. Their feet shifted back just half an inch. It was subtle. But Keanu noticed. And more importantly, they noticed that he noticed. The bearded man clenched his jaw. The lean biker let out a slow breath, shaking his head. Then finally he muttered, "Sorry." Sandra crossed her arms. That was pathetic. Keanu raised an eyebrow slightly. The bearded biker's fists clenched at his sides, the humiliation settling in. He looked at Keanu. Happy now? Keanu shrugged. Almost. The air felt heavier. The tension was still there, hanging between them like a thread stretched too thin. The bearded biker exhaled sharply, grabbing his friend by the shoulder. "Let's go." They turned toward the exit, but before stepping outside, the big guy paused. He cast one last glare at Keanu, his eyes dark and filled with something more than just anger. He smirked slightly, a warning. "This ain't over." Keanu didn't blink. The door swung open. The bikers stepped out. The distant roar of motorcycle engines rumbled through the gas station as the two men mounted their bikes, and then, finally, they were gone. Sandra let out a long breath, her shoulders easing slightly. Only now did she realize just how tense she had been. The store clerk let out a stunned whistle. "Dude, that was insane!" Keanu didn't respond. His eyes were still fixed outside, because deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Keanu stepped outside first, his gaze sweeping over the empty gas station. The sun was still high, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Sandra followed, still gripping her coffee, finally allowing herself to breathe. "Looks like they're gone," she muttered. Keanu didn't respond right away. His eyes moved across the lot, scanning, assessing. Something felt off. Then he saw it. Lying near the Ferrari's rear tire was a black motorcycle helmet. It hadn't been there before. Sandra followed his gaze, her stomach twisting. Did they forget it? Keanu didn't answer. He took a slow step toward the helmet but didn't touch it. No note, no message, but he didn't need words to understand what this meant. Sandra swallowed hard. This wasn't an accident. It was a message. Keanu finally moved. He ignored the helmet, opened the car door, and slid inside. "Let's go." Sandra didn't argue. She climbed in quickly, her heart still pounding. Keanu took one last glance around, then started the engine. The Ferrari roared to life, cutting through the eerie silence of the gas station. As they pulled onto the road, the helmet remained behind, untouched. And somewhere, someone was waiting to see what they would do next. The car moved smoothly down the highway, but the tension inside was heavy. Sandra exhaled, running a hand through her hair. "Okay, tell me I'm just overthinking this." Keanu kept his eyes on the road, his voice calm but firm. "You're not." Sandra bit her lip. "So what now?" Keanu's grip on the wheel tightened slightly. "We wait." Sandra didn't like that answer. She glanced at the rearview mirror, an uneasy feeling settling in her chest. And then, her stomach dropped. Back on the road, in the distance, something was coming. Something fast. 2 motorcycles. Her breath caught. Keanu. He didn't react. He had already seen them. The bikers were back. And this time, they weren't just watching. The Ferrari glided smoothly along the highway, its powerful engine humming beneath them. The California sun burned low, casting long golden streaks over the open road. But inside the car, the atmosphere had shifted. Sandra's fingers tightened around the edge of her seat as she glanced at the 2 motorcycles gaining on them. Keanu didn't look back. He didn't need to. He had already sensed it. The way they were moving, the way they weren't trying to pass, weren't acting like normal bikers on an open highway. They were stalking. Sandra exhaled sharply. "Tell me they're just taking the same route." Keanu's jaw clenched slightly. He didn't answer right away, keeping his grip steady on the wheel. Then, he tested them. He eased off the gas just slightly, enough to see what they'd do. The bikers slowed down too. Sandra saw it immediately. Her stomach turned. "Oh, great." Keanu exhaled through his nose. "They won't do anything here. Too much traffic." Sandra glanced ahead. The road stretched for miles, but soon there would be an exit leading to a more secluded route. She saw Keanu notice it at the same time. Her pulse picked up. "You're about to do something, aren't you?" Keanu didn't answer. Instead, a small, knowing smirk played at the corner of his lips. Not amusement, just calm certainty. He flicked the gear shift. Sandra barely had time to grip the dashboard before Keanu turned the wheel sharply, swerving onto the exit ramp. The Ferrari's tires screeched as they veered off the main highway onto a narrow side road. Sandra turned her head just in time to see the bikers react, and they followed. She bit her lip. They took the bait. Keanu kept his eyes locked on the winding road ahead. Let's see how far they're willing to go. The road was narrower, filled with tight turns, the kind of terrain that favored motorcycles, not sports cars, and the bikers knew it. They accelerated, closing the gap. Sandra's heart pounded. They're getting too close. Keanu's fingers flexed over the wheel, his expression never changing. Then, the skinny biker made his move. He surged forward, his motorcycle pulling dangerously close to the Ferrari's right side. But he wasn't trying to pass. He was testing Keanu. And then, he reached into his jacket. Sandra saw it before Keanu did. Her eyes widened. He's got a... The biker pulled out a thick metal chain, and before she could finish her sentence, he swung it. The chain snapped through the air, aimed directly at the Ferrari's windshield. Keanu had a fraction of a second to react, and what he did next changed everything. Keanu's reflexes kicked in before the chain even fully swung through the air. In a split second, he twisted the wheel hard to the left. The Ferrari swerved, its tires screeching as the sleek red frame barely dodged the incoming strike. The heavy chain whipped through the air, missing the windshield by inches, and instead clanking against the side mirror, sending sparks flying. Sandra gasped, gripping the seat. Oh, hell no, did he just try to take us out? Keanu didn't answer. His focus was razor sharp. The lean biker, still gripping the chain, let out a frustrated growl. His eyes burned with something beyond road rage. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. This was an attack. And Keanu was done playing defense. He shifted gears. The Ferrari roared, its engine unleashing raw power as it suddenly accelerated forward, breaking away from the bikers. Sandra barely had time to process before she saw what Keanu was doing. Up ahead, the road narrowed between two old abandoned construction barriers. There was just enough space for the Ferrari to squeeze through. But for the motorcycles? Sandra's eyes widened. Oh, that's evil. Keanu didn't smile. He just executed. The Ferrari shot forward, slipping cleanly between the barriers. The bikers, caught off guard, reacted too late. The lean biker swerved hard, barely avoiding slamming into the barrier, his tires skidding wildly. His friend wasn't so lucky. The bearded biker clipped the edge, his front wheel jerking violently. He lost control, his bike tipping sideways as he crashed hard onto the pavement, rolling several feet before coming to a painful stop. Sandra twisted in her seat, glancing back. The bearded man wasn't getting up anytime soon. But the lean biker was still on them. Keanu kept his foot on the gas, but his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. The last biker was speeding up again. He was furious, reckless. Keanu exhaled through his nose. Almost done. Sandra blinked. What does that mean? Before she could process it, Keanu made his final move. The Ferrari jerked to the side, kicking up a small storm of dust and debris, blinding the biker for just half a second. And that's all Keanu needed. He slammed the brakes. The sudden stop was so precise, so controlled, that Sandra barely moved in her seat. But the biker wasn't so lucky. Blinded by dust, reacting too late, the biker panicked. His front wheel wobbled, and that's when he lost it. The motorcycle tilted violently before flipping sideways, sending the rider crashing into the dirt with a brutal thud. His bike spun out, its tires still kicking up dust before rolling to a complete stop. Silence. The Ferrari sat still in the middle of the road, the engine purring like a beast that had just won a fight. Sandra turned to Keanu, her chest rising and falling. Remind me to never piss you off. Keanu's hands slowly relaxed on the wheel. His expression remained unreadable, but his eyes softened slightly. It's over. Sandra let out a breath and leaned back. Yeah, but they won't forget this. Keanu put the car into gear again. Neither will we. And with that, the Ferrari pulled away, leaving the wreckage behind. As they disappeared down the road, the two fallen bikers lay motionless, dust settling around them. They had started this, but they never stood a chance.